I'm really excited to talk about networks. It's a whole new science. Scientists are finding that networks are the basic structure of the universe. Think of rivers, or trees, or brains, or cities, or internet, or solar system. It is the whole way that the universe is organised, including businesses. The trouble is, most managers aren't used to looking for networks and therefore aren't managing their businesses as they actually are. In the last 10 years, a whole new science of networks has been developed. And most managers seem to know very little about this. I mean, computer scientists know about it because they're working with networks all the time. But businesses are still stuck in the paradigm of hierarchies and organisation charts and departments and divisions. But when you start to see your organisation as a network, it's really, really powerful. It's almost like a chemical reaction. You are no longer the same person you were before when you couldn't see your organisation as a network. My name is Bruce Holland. I'm the author of the book Cracking Great Leaders and designer of the Cracking Great Leaders program. So the basic reason why you should use this module is many managers think they're managing a hierarchy. You know, the organisation chart. They're managing their department. They're managing their division. But actually, what they're managing is a network. Now, clearly, if you think you're managing one thing and actually managing something else, then you're unlikely to be very successful at what you're actually managing. This is a vital piece of information, and when I deliver it, I see light bulbs go off in the managers' heads. I mean, they probably sort of knew this, but they have not been taught it. It's not something that's widely taught in the business schools where most managers have learned their craft. Work actually happens through networks, not through organisation charts. But I bet you anything you like, if you go and talk to a manager and you say, let me have a look at the way your organisation's organised, he or she will bring out an organisation chart and show you how the relationships are. It's like totally mad because it's simply not the way the organisation works. Take, for example, here, Josh, this wee guy here. In the organisation chart, Josh is the lowest level manager that is. But when you put Josh into the informal network, Josh becomes the central person, the person who connects just about everybody, the person who people will come to for information or advice, the person people trust. Whereas Lucas, top dog in the hierarchy, top of the chain or tree, Lucas is pretty well connected to, at least to his 3 direct reports. And of course to Josh, because Josh is connected to just about everyone. But can you see how Josh becomes vitally important once we start to see? Now, if we're not managing Josh as an important person to our organisation, we're not managing our organisation. The reasons why you should buy this module. If you're delivering to your clients, they will start to understand that there's a whole new science about networks. As I said, computer people know about it. Business people don't. If they don't see their organisation as it actually is, there's no way they can effectively manage it. Understanding networks helps them manage much more effectively in their units, in their organisation, and to work more effectively with other organisations in the wider sector, because most organisations can't actually achieve what they need to achieve on their own these days. They have to work with other strategic partnerships, and understanding how they fit into the network and who the strength and who's the connectors and so on, is a vitally important thing. Also, networks are a much more natural way of working. The readings show how for 99% of our evolutionary history, human beings have worked in networks of family and tribal origin. It's the way we're made. The other reason you should use this module is it shows you how to grow networks and how to use them much more deliberately. So quite a bit of this module is about understanding the basic laws of networks. I'm going to discuss only 2 in any detail, but each is really important. We'll discuss the first 2, Metcalfe's law and the law of proximity. But it's really important that you understand the law of networks, the law of scale, the law of connectors. The law of small worlds and weak ties is like mind-blowingly important once you understand it. The law of reciprocity, the law of rich get richer, starts to explain a whole universe of things that seemed like inexplicable before. It will also show you how to plot who's in your network. It'll show you how to identify the roles that people have in your network, how to draw a network map, how to build strong networks, and it will end up with the golden rules of networking. This module has nothing to do with going into a room and exchanging business cards. It's all about how to make your organisation much more, well, it already is a network, but how to recognise it as a network, how to strengthen those networks, how to view those networks, and how to work with those networks. The first law of networks that I want to talk about is Metcalfe's law. And essentially what Metcalfe's law says is that if you have 4 people, these 4 people here, then you've got 6 relationships. Intuitively, you would think if you doubled the number of people, you'd double the number of relationships. But if you double the number of people to 8 people, you don't double the relationships, they go up exponentially. You go to 28 relationships, and then you go up again to 16, it goes up again exponentially, and so on. So this is like a vitally important piece of knowledge, because I don't know many businesses that grow exponentially, but networks do. And if you can create your business into a network, you have the ability to become exponential growth. The law of proximity says that relationships are formed and people become close and friendly because of proximity, because of how close they are. Not because of similarity, not because they share the same values or the same religion or so on. It's essentially because of proximity. Even relatively small distances can reduce strength of the proximity of the connections a great deal. So some wag said when I was delivering this, we were talking about meetings, and they said, well, I guess what it means is just bringing your body to the meeting is at least part of its success. And it is. I mean, as managers, we seem to have got into this thing of saying, look, we've got to discourage meetings. And I admit sometimes meetings can seem to be over the top, take a lot of time. But when you start to think of them in terms of networks, meetings take on a whole new importance. Encouraging meetings is something that is really important when it comes to strengthening networks. Lunchrooms, probably something that only an old guy like me remembers. But I tell you, lunchrooms where people come and can chat and can mix and can talk to people, especially between business units, are like vitally important. Peer-to-peer action groups where people come together across departments or business units and support each other in learning, vitally important. Coffee breaks. How many people have canned coffee breaks, and now we have them at our desk? But you see, that's because we're seeing our organisation as a silo, as a bureaucracy, rather than a network. Conferences. 15 years ago, I used to regularly go and talk at conferences. But these days, hardly anyone has a conference. If you had a conference in the public sector in Wellington, you'd be on the front page of the newspaper. People don't value conferences anymore because they think that they're a waste of money. Looking at it through the lens of a network puts a totally different spin on the whole thing. And of course, Christmas parties. When I was a young manager, Christmas parties used to be something that the whole family got involved in. And we would meet each other's families and each other's children. And it became like vitally important. We started to really associate with the organisation. The organisation started to really associate with us. And the whole culture became far stronger. Not today, not today. We're into boxes and we're into hierarchies and we're into silos. So in the module we get people doing a whole lot of things with their bodies. And these people are trying to work out where the connections are just with a ball of wool. And suddenly they start to realise that, hey, this person here, who might be one of the key customers, actually we're not very connected to at all. And so you can do some work like this, which is really valuable and helps people in a fun sort of a way to realise that networks can be much stronger or weaker depending on where we're putting our effort. So how this module will add value? You see, the connections between people add at least as much value to the organisation as the individuals actually in the organisation. But most managers are not seeing these connections. They're not thinking about the connection or the network as an important part. Science is right into this. In the last decade or so, physicists have started to realise that physics is not only about the physical stuffs like water and solids and gases. At a much deeper level, physics is really about how these things are organised. It's an exploration of the law of pure form. The form of how these things are organised together are what really matters. Businesses need to take on the same thing. The other reason it adds value is because, as I said before, the value of networks grows exponentially as you add to the network. So add to the network, the value grows exponentially. Networks add value and organisation charts don't. In fact, organisation charts suck energy out of people, unless of course you're sitting right at the top and you probably look much more important than you really are. But even that's taking enormous value out of the total organisation. It might make the person at the top feel good, but not so much the people, and most of them are, down at the bottom. Workplaces become designed for human conditions. As I said, for 99% of our evolutionary history, we've worked in networks. And they're the natural way to do it. And yet somehow or other, today, we shove people into these hierarchies and silos, and we expect them to work in an enthusiastic, innovative, creative sort of a way. And it cannot happen. We're not designed that way. When networks are in place, you end up with people understanding better. They're better connected. Communications improve enormously, and collaboration between individuals, teams, and even organisations within the sector become much stronger. And of course, the result of it all is better profit, better productivity, less hassle, less people fighting each other, less backstabbing, much better culture. So your next steps are to download the readings and become really familiar with them. To download the process and become familiar with the process. To deliver the module to your client and then to collect the revenue. My call to action is that you buy this module. It will explain all you need for a successful workshop. It has all the readings, the exercises and the process, and it is a process that works. It's a real eye-opener to managers. Suddenly they're seeing their organisation as though it had changed its total shape. And actually it has, because although it's always been like that, they've not seen it that way. Sometimes obvious things have to be pointed out. And the importance of networks is something that for some reason managers just don't seem to have cottoned on to. So this module is not only eye-opening, it's extraordinarily valuable, and I've found my clients have been delighted with it. I hope yours are too.